And with that, it is 1:01. Good afternoon. We want to be cognizant of everyone's time, so we will get this webinar started. I'm Chris Jadek, Director of Communications for TBARTA, and welcome to our webinar, Transportation Choice and the Hybrid Office. As you can see, Ken Bowden, Manager of Commuter Services with TBARTA, and Arlinda Carulli, Account Executive with Commute with Enterprise, are going to be presenting today. And with that, Ken, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. First of all, I just want to ask, can everybody see the screen? All right, we're on good track then. So my name is Ken Bowden, and I'm the manager of TBARTA's Commuter Services program. I'm joined today by Arlinda Carulli from Commute with Enterprise. Arlinda is the account executive for both the Tampa Bay region and Southwest Florida. Just a point about asking questions. The chat box is available. Please type your questions into the chat box when you have a moment. And I'm hoping that as we get to the end of the presentation, we can take time to answer your questions. So to start, we're going to talk about the hybrid workplace, what it is, the dimensions of variability, the keys of productivity, the benefits and disadvantages of the model, and a short list of best practices. And then we're going to move on to a discussion of our Vanpool program, ending with what, again, I hope is a robust discussion that helps to sync Vanpool with the hybrid workplace model. So first of all, what is the hybrid workplace? To be concise, it's a workplace where there's a degree of flexibility with where and when employees work. Sometimes a department will have a certain percentage of workers who are working remotely and the rest who work on premise. Other departments will choose a variation of the model where employees work on premise on certain days and then work remotely on other days. Obviously, location is one of the key variables in defining the hybrid model, but it's also important to think about this dimension of time. This graph from Linda Grattan at the University of London helps illustrate this degree of variability. Think of work varying by location, where the work is done, and time, when the work is done. The hybrid model sits more or less in the center of this diagram. As you move right on the diagram, we're really talking about fully remote workforces, and to the left, we're getting back to that traditional on-premise work model. But there's a positive correlation, I think, between remote work and work with flexible hours. And to do justice to Grattan's model, she really asks us to focus on the job itself. Grattan proposes that job productivity is built from 4 key factors: energy, focus, coordination, and cooperation. Oops. Combining these keys with the axes described previously, Grattan further proposes that in general terms of energy level, energy improves when the job is done remotely. In contrast, jobs requiring a high level of cooperation improve by being done on premise. In terms of the time dimension, jobs that require a high level of focus benefit when time is flexible, and jobs requiring a high degree of coordination improve when times are fixed. So as you contemplate what your employees do, it's worth reflecting on how these components describe their job. Which jobs require a high level of focus, which jobs could benefit from increased energy levels, etc. By categorizing jobs based on these four keys will help you define your organization's hybrid workplace. But let's pause a moment from the analytical stuff and take a few moments just to talk about the pros and cons of the hybrid workplace. A few of the benefits include employee recruitment and retention. The majority of employees like working from home. They report feeling less stressed and having a better work-life balance. And some employers have noted that they've actually switched to the hybrid model to avoid employee turnover, what is being called as the Great Resignation. Employee productivity. Employees are, on average, more productive at home. Remote workers report higher energy levels and better ability to focus and concentrate on completing tasks, something that Breton had predicted. Workplace resilience. Incorporating pandemic era practices will help keep organizations resilient against, knock on wood, future pandemic outbreaks. It can potentially keep the organization functioning through catastrophic weather events and other unanticipated changes to the social or natural environment. Lower costs of operation. The hybrid workplace may also benefit organizations by reducing operation costs. Shared workspace, reduced wear and tear on office equipment, and the ability to tap into remote labor markets are costs that most organizations typically view as fixed. So what are some of the disadvantages? The downside is that remote workers may not have access to reliable internet, or they may find it difficult to create a productive domestic workspace. Living square footage, the number of household occupants, all affect the worker's ability to create a productive space for themselves. Remote workers often feel left out. They frequently report that they don't have the same access to on-premise staff and complain about being left out of important conversations. Some complain that they are overlooked for promotion and don't feel like they have equal access to opportunities compared to on-site workers. Remote workers often in the hybrid model run the risk of becoming siloed. So in the hybrid model, both on-site and remote workers have complained that they don't always have a full picture of what staff is doing. And finally, obviously, not all employees have jobs conducive to the hybrid model. Healthcare, manufacturing, retail are obvious examples of jobs that don't fit. But aside from those jobs that really don't fit, not all workers have the personality to make remote work possible. Some actually get their energy from coming to the workplace, while others have jobs that require a high degree of coordination and cooperation. And I want to just move on to the best practices of the hybrid model. Many of these best practices actually go beyond the hybrid model. They've evolved out of organizations that have been fully remote for quite some time. And some of these best practices really make sense for the traditional 9-to-5 on-premise workplaces too. So assuring that employees have access to on-demand communication is important. On-demand or asynchronous communications are really one and the same. An example of synchronous communication is going to a meeting, listening to what people have to say. And a second example is setting an appointment with the procurement officer and learning how to complete a purchasing form. The person giving the information and the person receiving the information are synchronous in the same time frame with one another. Digitizing meeting notes and the procurement process and placing it on a platform available to all employees is a form of asynchronous communication. And making that hybrid workplace function really means moving to a more asynchronous type of communication. Establish rules for hybrid meetings. Some executive directors recommend having everyone in the hybrid meeting join from their computer, whether they're working remotely or whether they're in office. This really helps even out the playing field and prevents in-office workers from changing the content of the meeting once virtual attendees have departed. So, as I mentioned previously, helping financially strapped employees get reliable internet and helping them furnish their home office can go a long way to improving their productivity. Establishing a secure network. So whether you choose to host information on a local server or place information in the cloud, controlling who has access to that information is critically important. There's a lot of things that you can do with establishing a secure network, but some of the simple things that you can do is for email and access to a VPN, require employees to use passwords with 16 or more characters. They don't have to use symbols and they don't have to use punctuation. It's simply, they need to be long. Additionally, set up two-factor authentication. Most email systems and VPN service providers actually allow two-factor authentication. And these are simple steps that you can enact today. Finally, I really want to just talk about the switch from monthly paid parking to daily parking fees. Evidence shows that employees who purchase a monthly or annual parking pass drive more. Even when they can work from home, they may opt to drive to the office because they have prepaid parking. It also cripples attempts to move employees out of single occupant vehicles. Those who might want to try riding to work by bike are less likely to do so when they have prepaid parking. And the same is true for those who might want to try transit or rideshare. For organizations trying to switch their employees' behavior, daily parking fees could be the factor that gets them to try something that's better for their health, better for the environment, and ultimately better for our traffic congestion. The adoption of the hybrid workplace model presents an opportunity. It's the simple change in behavior, the switch from our pandemic, fully remote model to the hybrid model can make a powerful and lasting impact on our transportation system. For those thinking about the hybrid model and haven't brought employees back to the office, some simple planning can help make that transition greener, cleaner, and leaner. TBARTA's Commuter Services program has something for everyone. For those who live close enough to make bicycling a reasonable and stress-reducing option, we can help on several levels. We can help by locating bike routes that balance safety with time savings and putting people in contact with other bicycle enthusiasts to ease that transition to pedal power. For employees with a 10-mile or more commute, at the other extreme, we offer Vanpool. Vanpool fits the niche in our regional transportation system that picks up where the transit system leaves off. It's potentially a great fit with our medium and long-range commuters. And to talk more about Vanpool, Arlinda Carulli with Commute with Enterprise is going to give us a great nuts and bolts overview of the program. So Arlinda, go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken, and thank you for all the folks that are joining us today. When we talk about hybrid and transportation, I feel really Vampooling has played a big role throughout, right? And also we're shifting with what the times are requiring of us right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how Vampooling plays a part in this. But before I do so, just a quick overview, like Ken mentioned, about how Vampooling works. A lot of you may have seen a couple of these slides before. It functions a lot like a large carpool, right? So ideally what we end up seeing is 4 to 15 individuals that live near one another, and they meet at a centralized location of their choice. Now, I'm going to pause there for a moment. When we talk about this centralized location, this in a rural area could mean 2-3 miles away to someone, or to others that live closer together, it could be walking distance. So for the rural folks, we see a couple options. Sometimes, Vanpool goes and picks everyone up, which is not ideal, right? We don't want to waste more time or add more time to their commute. So we see quite a few of them maybe carpooling again with one another, maybe a smaller group of 1 or 2. And then we also have folks that are biking to the centralized meeting location, or maybe if there's a quick bus route that gets them to that. So again, I feel vanpooling has really played a big role in this hybrid option for such a long time, just with that centralized meeting location. So Enterprise again provides the vehicle for the folks to get to and from the work site, and participants share driving responsibilities. What we see quite a bit nowadays is also that participant number actually being higher than the number of seats available in the vehicle. That's because the Vanpool is being utilized 7 days a week. So what I mean by that is, some folks may work Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Friday, and then the others, Tuesday or Wednesday through Sunday. So we're actually seeing them kind of organically build up the schedule that works best for the group. And then they're able to split that cost evenly throughout based on the distance, right? And with them being able to share driving responsibilities, we've seen this utilized in a couple of different ways. Everyone that has a license maybe wants to volunteer as a driver, gets to rotate through those responsibilities, which means that, a carpool or a vanpool of 15, maybe you get to drive once, every 2 or 3 weeks, which is fantastic. And then we also open up doors, and we've shifted in these different markets that Ken talked about, right? Hospitality business, manufacturing sites, a lot of housekeeping staff, even for hospitals, where some folks may not even have a driver's license or other means of transportation, especially if we're talking about second or third shift. So this really opens up doors for that as well. If we have, 2 or 3 drivers that are volunteering, and then others can just still join the Vanpool. So we've seen it utilized as a great recruitment tool, as a great retention tool to maintain those folks working at the worksite longer period of time. Next slide. So when we talk about vanpooling and why employees love it, as I mentioned, there's variation in the vehicle options we have available for the groups. So we've got anywhere to a 7-passenger SUV that could accommodate a smaller group, 5, 7, 8-passenger minivans, and all the way up to 10, 12, and 15-passenger cars. It's a month-to-month program, so it's not a long-term financial commitment. Something that I've stressed in the past is pre-COVID, we were averaging 6 years of Vanpool on the road. So this is fantastic. We actually have quite a few groups here in the Tampa Bay area that have been in Vanpools for 15 plus years. Some that we had to say goodbye to because they were retiring. With the times of COVID, they were pushed a little earlier through that. But again, it's really exciting to see that time frame that they're in those vehicles increase. Insurance is something that Enterprise covers, so it really gives them that flexibility, right? As I mentioned, they don't have to have a car of their own. They don't have to have insurance. Participants can just be part of the program, and Enterprise is going to cover the vehicle for them, bumper to bumper, up to a total loss. There's no deductible payout. And then there's also $1 million in liability that we provide. One great thing, and if there's some work sites that are listening in right now, I want to know if this is a good option. I know risk always comes up when we talk about this. This is a to and from work option, remember. So they're not clocked in during that time. That means that you as a work site, even if you decide to subsidize, cover a portion of the cost of the Vanpool, you're not exposed to anything. Again, this is like any other means of transportation. So if they're utilizing a bus or if they're biking to the work site. Full maintenance. So Enterprise does not see their vehicle back at the end of the day. This is something that the Vanpool keeps. And one great thing that we offer to those folks is also 200 miles per month for personal use. So we see quite a few folks that have eliminated a second vehicle that they had for the household that was utilized only to get to and from the work site. And then they actually rotate through the use. So If someone has to go to the grocery store, they take the vehicle that weekend, right? And then if so, the other driver or the next person takes that on. And with that, with this maintenance, this actually, we have preferred vendors that they can take the vehicle to, and Enterprise is charged directly for oil change or anything necessary on the car. One other thing, roadside, that's 24/7. So again, some great benefits that are included in there for the riders. Really, the highlight of the program is savings. It's really phenomenal compared to driving your personal vehicle. And we're taking into account not just the fuel, not the exposure, right, to insurance and things of that sort, but also the wear and tear and the depreciation. Being able to share a ride with someone else in the vehicle with you. We've always started talking now, especially after COVID, about this community culture, community sense. And this is a great way to go about it. It's not just about the money and what the group is saving, but it's also building something new for the folks participating in the program. Something else that we've seen from that, the usage of 7 days a week, it's also, part-time folks or folks that are working 2 to 3 days in their home and then the other time at the work site. We've seen this especially with hospitals, Ken mentioned earlier. Some administrative folks have the luxury to work from home, but then they also have to return to the work site a couple days a week. So again, we've actually kind of grown with this organically and implemented this and allowed the groups to figure this out. And we're growing with that as well. Next slide, please. So I think I can't go on without really highlighting that subsidy that TBARTA provides for the program. So I'm going to have Ken talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, so we're funded by the Florida Department of Transportation and are able to offer a $400 a month subsidy to help support the Vanpool program. I also want to mention briefly that we also offer an emergency ride home. This is a safety net designed to protect folks that have to leave their Vanpool for reasons such as illness, or maybe an illness to a loved one, and they need to get home quickly to take care of their dependent. It's also for unscheduled changes. So if the driver has to leave and it strands the riders, they're eligible for the program. And folks that have to leave early from work for whatever reason, or they have an unscheduled change to their work schedule, they're eligible to use this as well. And it's good for up to $100 per incident, and folks can use this 6 times in a calendar year. Folks in the Vanpool program are automatically enrolled in the emergency ride home program, but we extend this to other folks, to bicyclists, to people using transit, to those who are in carpools. And all they need to do to qualify for the emergency ride home is to register an account with Commute Tampa Bay and start recording their trips. And Arlinda, I'll send this back to you.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll move on to the next slide. So being able to join a Vanpool, it's really quite easy. All you need to do is go to the commutewithenterprise.com site, and you can click the Join Commute button. So there's a couple of different options that you see on the screen right there. So it could be just you, right? You want to be able to identify and see if there is an existing group near you that you're able to join. Just click on that, and it's going to prompt you to put in your information, your commuter schedule, right? The days that you plan on utilizing the program, as well as the times. You could also have a group of friends, right? So it could be a group that's already decided that, hey, you know what? We all work from at the same work site. We've got the similar schedule, we're ready to move forward. And you can click on me and my friends. So this is going to do a couple of things. Again, it's going to tell you if there's some options available. It also prompts a message to my operations team and to us And what we'd be able to do is within 24 hours, connect with those specific groups, walk them through the cost, talk through what the benefits of the program, how it works, highlight that for them, and then see if we can move things forward. And the last button you see on there is employer, right? Same scenario. If you are an employer that you are interested to learn more about the program, to see if this is going to be something that benefits your work site, then we would most certainly take that route. Something that we do is actually a cluster and route analysis. So what we end up doing is for the work site, collect some data, right? We typically work with HR. We want to collect the addresses of the employees with an employee identifier so that they remain anonymous. And then what we could do is put this in a analysis where it's going to allow us to see exactly where the folks are coming from. And it's really wonderful to see because we do it by shift. So we collect information and say, hey, you know what? You've got a group of people that are traveling from, say, Bradenton going all the way to Hillsborough, right? All the way to downtown Tampa. This is a group that we need to approach, have that connection with to say, hey, all of you, this is an opportunity for you guys to carpool together, to Vanpool together. We break down the cost, show them the value, and then see if this is something that they'd be interested in. So I strongly encourage, if we have some work sites on the call now that are interested to learn a bit more about that cluster and route analysis, to reach out to us. Ken, you want to go to the next slide? This is kind of the continuation. So if there are some existing options available for you, it'll tell you, right? Hey, you've got 5 matches. Here are those matches right here, you know, the distance, what they normally take to get to the work site. And then when you click next, you could actually put your information in. And again, when you submit it, it's wonderful because it prompts something on our end where we could actually see all those Vanpools. We could see all the coordinators, kind of our main point of contact for each one. We can take a look and make sure that there's room in the Vanpool. And then it's very easy for us to kind of connect the folks together and make sure that we get them to the Vanpool group. So one item, I know that I believe this is the end of our slide. Ken, are you able to maybe go to the Commute with Enterprise site? Because I'd love to show folks the calculator they're able to utilize from that.
Arlinda, I thought I'd mention that. We do have a question from Christina Costa, and I think this really kind of fits very nicely with what you want to demonstrate, and that's like the costs involved with operating a personal vehicle. And Christine wants to know what the average annual costs are. And I was wondering, Arlinda, can you answer that? I believe it's over $9,000 a year.
Yeah, the average, really, there's a lot of variations when we look at that. Typically, when we talk about the Vanpool program and we take this like countrywide average of the savings, we're thinking on the 6,000 a yearly range. But you're right, Ken, when we start identifying the numbers in the Tampa Bay area, they are on the higher end. We've got quite a few folks traveling long distances to commute to work. So that's why that average is probably going to be a little different. And yeah, absolutely. When I saw her, Christine's question, I thought immediately about, you know, what we could show you, and you could actually see what your commute is going to cost you. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly here.
Okay. Oh, I'll let you do that.
It's not showing me which one. Sorry, excuse me. If you have the capability to do that, Ken, I'm just trying to, it's not telling me which screen is sharing. So,
okay.
Let's try it maybe one more time. What do you guys see as far as the screen shared right now?
It looks like notes, your notes. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So what we're seeing on here, again, when we go to commutewithenterprise.com, I strongly encourage this. This tool is really awesome to see. And you scroll all the way down to the bottom. So again, this is what I was talking about earlier, is join Commute, you know, check and see if there is something available near you. Talks a little bit about what I covered today, right? How the program works, the groups get together, they choose the vehicle and get going. And then the best part about it is this wonderful calculator you see at the bottom here. So there's 2 buttons. We see something that says for companies as well as for commuters. So if you're a company and just want to take a look at the average, right? Hey, I've got this is flexible, right? This is so awesome because you could play around with this calculator depending on the number of employees that you have. And I believe it takes about 10% of that, right? So very low number. We're just kind of trying to see what happens out there. So if you've got about 1,500 employees at your work site, this calculator, it's estimating that we're going to have about 130 parking spots reduced. So this is phenomenal to see, especially for like the downtown locations or the work sites that really have challenge with parking, to kind of see right away that, hey, a very low percentage of employees participating can really impact those numbers. And then when we look about the employee savings, close to 1 million, again, this takes into account depreciation. It takes into account the fuel, the wear and tear on their personal vehicle. And that's kind of how we get that 130 plus, right, folks, utilizing the program. And then the best of all, something that Ken highlighted earlier is the carbon emission reduction on an annual basis. It does take the average out for you. Something awesome that we do is our folks actually report on these numbers, right? So all of our participants, we get to see based on their route what these numbers look like in terms of each work site. So we do reviews with them to show these analytics, break them down and say, hey, here's something you should be proud of, right? I'm gonna name James A. Haley right now just because they've got the largest number of Vanpools. You know, we've got millions of carbon emission reduced from the program, and that's absolutely bragging rights, right? Just because this is something wonderful and taking on that green initiatives. And then when we shift things over for commuters, this is something that reflects you guys, right? So if you're on the call right now, I strongly encourage this. I had Ken do it earlier. So you could actually put down what your round trip commute is. So right now we're talking 25 miles each way, right? 50 miles total. And this is what that average is going to look like. So per year, about 4,000 plus. That's 309 hours that you're spending on a drive to and from work by yourself, right? That's a lot of Netflix time. That's a lot of napping, whatever it is you choose to do with your time when someone else is driving. Take advantage of that, right? Give it a shot. Like Ken said, there's this emergency ride home program, and that really gives you that safety blanket of well, I'm not going to be stranded if something does happen, right? And then again, that's the average miles. If our audience is familiar with the chip shortage right now, or if anybody's been shopping for a car lately, the pricing is tremendously higher, right? A lot higher than what they normally are. So imagine just, this is kind of low, 25, 50 round trip. We normally target those long distance commuters because that's really who this program impacts. But that's 13,000 miles a year that you're putting on your personal vehicle. Imagine that, folks that are having a lot longer commutes, right? If we're talking even 30 miles each way, that's still in such a higher range, 16,000 miles. So within a few years, you're already 30,000 plus miles only commuting to and from the work site. So again, great calculator for you guys to take advantage of. Any questions on this, or Ken, any comments before I'll stop sharing my screen and then we'll answer some other questions.